was class as
So it'll
well.
be October before we have another meeting.
It's going to be October till right. So we are. This is the last session of the year, and next 4 sessions going to happen on Yom Tov. So we're going to skip them, and we're going to rejoin after Simchat Torah, after Shabbat Bereshit. We are in Ruth, Megillat Ruth, second chapter, chapter 2, and we are in verse Daled. 4th verse. And how did we get here? We have Naomi and Ruth are in Bethlehem. They came back. Ruth is converted. And they don't have much to live on because they lost everything that they had. So Ruth was sent. Ruth agreed to go and collect food for both of them. For Naomi and Ruth, and she went to collect matnot aniyim, the gifts to the poor. More specifically, the leket, which is gleaning, just collecting onesies or twosies, that ears, stalks that fell when the harvesters cut. So 1 fell, 2 fell. If it's 3, it belongs to the owner, to the farmer. If it's less than 3, the poor can collect it. So it's obviously a tough job because you have to go with your bed, you back bent and collect, from the ground. There is also some of them that sometimes there were some ears that remained connected. So you will have to go. The poor person will have to go and cut them. So there are. Again, it's different motions, different back breaking.
Many years ago, I was in California. I drove through Gilroy, California, which is the garlic capital. So they call something.
What kind of capital?
Garlic.
Garlic, yeah.
You ride through it just smells like garlic.
Yeah.
But I saw in the fields, the fields had already been harvested.
So people were
out picking up garlic that was left behind.
Right. Yeah.
Purposely.
Yeah, because there was. So
I wanted to ask, where were Ruth and Naomi sleeping?
So where they were staying, before she left, she was a very wealthy person, so she had an estate.
She still had a house?
She had a house. She had a house where to stay, but the house was empty, and the fields were either bare or were leased to Boaz. So she just had 4 walls, but not much beyond that. So she was. So Ruth happened to bump into the field of Boaz. She didn't know it's Boaz's field, and she started gleaning over there. She started collecting the food over there, and she stayed there the whole day. This is one of like 2 or 3 coincidences that we call divine intervention, ashgacha pratit, that occurred in this situation. So it happened to be the Boaz plot and Boaz field, and vehinei Boaz ba, and Boaz shows up. Mi Bethlehem. He came from Bethlehem. The field was not in the city. In those days, we'll talk about it a little later more. In those days, the cities were small, and they were surrounded by fields, and you had to travel from the city to the field in order to go to your workplace. They didn't have that many office buildings in the center of the city. So Boaz showed up from Bethlehem. Now, several things here. First of all, he just finished sitting Shiva, right? So he just came up and was ready to go back into normal life, and he shows up in his field. However, the word vehine is mentioned to be a something an unusual. Whenever it says vehine in the Mikra, it means something unusual happened. So it was unusual for him to go to the field. He was a wealthy person, number one, and he had a lot of fields, and it was unusual for him to show up at one particular field, number one. Number two, he was also and mainly a shofet. He was the guy in charge of the government, teaching all the Jews and leading them. And what happened is that that took most of his hours of the day to take care of the tzarchei tzibur of the klal, and he therefore was not often able to go to his fields.
Just for Yehuda.
Yehuda.
No, he was just the shofet for Yehuda.
No, he was a shofet of all Am Israel. Each one of the shoftim, he came from Shevet Yehuda, but each one of the shoftim was a shofet for the entire nation. So he would travel sometimes. I mean, there will be. It was not just to go look at one particular field. Was
meant to be.
Was meant to be. Now, why did it happen? How come they did it? Just woke up in the morning, it was itching to go there? No. There was something special happening that day. What was happening that day is that there was a new ruling published by the Beis Din. In those days, the Beis Din was sitting and making decisions on how to run the country and how to live life, because you had a lot of new, as the Jews moved to the land of Israel, they had all the time a lot of things that are new, that were not. They did not encounter those issues when they were in the desert, when they were traveling from Egypt. So as they were going through the first years of living in the land of Israel, a lot of new halachot needed to be established. So it was common that they would publish. It was common that they would publish a new halacha, and the way to spread the news was not Twitter those days. It was by word of mouth. So he would go and the Beis Din themselves and other people would go and teach the new ruling to the people. So he came to his field in order to teach them a new ruling. What was the new ruling? The new ruling was, this is what it says next, Vayomer lakotzrim Hashem imachem, and he greeted he blessed the kotzrim as he was greeting them. God is with you. And they greeted him back, Yevarechecha Hashem, and God will bless you. So what's new here? What's the story here? There is a halacha that prohibits us from mentioning the name of God, the name of God in vain. Just to say the name of God like that, that's why we're saying Hashem a lot. Baruch atah Hashem. Why we don't say God? Because you're not allowed to just mention the name of God in vain. So there are a few exceptions. When you read in the Torah, if you say a whole pasuk, you're allowed to say it. But you have to read it from inside, not by heart. So there are different laws and rules of when we can and should mention the name of God. So certainly when somebody would meet another person, they would not say, God is with you, because it's mentioning the name of God in vain, seemingly. Except that there are exceptions. And what was the exception? The exception is that the people needed to feel God wherever they went, and they sort of forgotten a little bit about it. We said in the beginning of Megillat Ruth, "Vayi b'mei shvot hashoftim." The day it was the time where the people would judge the judges. They would not give a lot of respect. They would not respect the judges. And if a judge would tell them something that they're doing wrong, they would say, "Yeah, look, what did you do? You did worse things," or very, very disrespectful. And as we worked the land, and we saw that when we plant, something grows, and when we don't plant, something doesn't grow. People started to get the feeling that it's kochi ve'otzem yadi, that it's me doing the work, and God is just in an advisory role here. So it was very important to strengthen the emunah, the belief in God, on a daily basis. So one of the exceptions, the Beis Din saw that it's what was Hora'at Sha'ah, which became afterwards something that we all do. It became necessary to mention the name of God as much as possible. We see that also in later years, in the 1700s, when the Baal Shem Tov came. He was going around 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 Russia, around the country, and was asking Jews, "How do you do?" And only for him to hear, "Thank God, Baruch Hashem," thank God, because he wanted to mention the name of God. And when somebody say it enough, they start thinking, who am I thinking? Why? God is in charge, etc. Now, it was also when people are talking to each other, when it's just, Mr. X talking to Mr. Y, so there can be very easily, it can go into some sort of a fight. But when God is between us, it's uncomfortable to fight. So when you say, Hashem imachem, okay, so God is already here, I can't, start picking a fight the next sentence. It's a little more difficult that way. So he came with that halakha that was newly published ruling of Beis Din, the Beis Din of Bethlehem, which again we'll talk about later. We'll see something special about it. He came to tell his people that this is how this is the new halakha, that's how you're supposed to act. Now they, in turn, put it right back into practice and say, Yevarechecha Hashem, God will bless you. They said it for several reasons. Number one, to follow the halakha that they just learned. Number two, the man just, stood up from Shiva, finished Shiva. He was 80 years old at the time. He was left without a wife. He needed extra bracha. He needed extra blessing. So, a lift. So that's what they told him.
Among the Edot HaMizrach, particularly the Syrians, before they receive an aliyah, or say the brachot of the aliyah, they come up and they say, Hashem imachem, and people respond, Yevarechecha Hashem.
Yes.
So they picked up on it.
They picked up on it, yeah. There is also Bnei Akiva. This is how they start a gathering of Bnei Akiva. Hashem imachem Yevarechecha Hashem. That's what when we were kids, that's what we used to do. Anyway. ויאמר בועז לנערו הניצב על הקוצרים, למי הנערה הזאת? So Boaz comes and they greet each other, and it's a bunch of harvesters. It's not just one guy, but he's addressing the foreman. He's addressing the guy in charge. Every field had a field manager, to make sure that the harvesters are doing the right thing, and if they need something that he's that people don't steal and people do what they need to do and that they have all the supplies that they need. So he was in charge of the harvesters. So he's asking him, who is this girl?
But why
Who is this woman?
Me, to whom does it belong? Why not mi hanara hazot?
So there is a whole discussion which we'll go through of what exactly was said and why. So first of all, let's just paint the situation. The situation was that she was the only poor person gleaning in the field. She was the only one there that was working. And the rest of the people in the field were the harvesters, were his people, were the workers. She also were able to collect what seems to be a significant amount for gleaner. Okay? Later on, it's mentioning that she collected an ephah. An ephah is 25 liter worth of grain, of stalks. It's with the hay, with everything else. So it's 25 liters, and she made 10 bundles of omer. Omer is a asirita ephah. Omer is a tenth of an ephah. So it's 2.5 liters. So imagine a little enlarged, 2 liter Coke bottle, So it's 2.5 liter. It's a little bigger than that. So she had 10 of those. That's what she collected, and each one she made a bundle of. And they were sort of on the side for her, because the harvesters will take it to the Gadish, to the place where you collect all of the grain for the owner, for the farmer, and she had her stuff, somewhere else in the field somewhere around her, and it was. Some say that it's typically it was a typical situation where you had one poor person per field after they collected the pe'ah, the corner. and the shechicha, the big bundles that were forgotten. The gleaning was, there were enough fields over there that if somebody would start on a field, another poor person will not encroach, will not come in to to compete. They will go somewhere else. So some say that it was a common thing. Some say it wasn't so common, but we can understand that it definitely was not like a mob scene, like when you're dealing with a corner that has a lot of stuff to collect all in one place. So she was alone. Now, he was also walking the field and saw how she's acting. And she was acting very, very differently than a common poor person. He saw her only picking up the onesies and twosies. If there were a bundle of 3 or a group of 3 stalks, she didn't touch them. Because according to halakha, you're not allowed. It belongs to the farmer. But, who's keeping that? Who's what?
Who's checking?
Who's checking? It's 2, 3, 4, whatever fell. I mean, the poor people go and collect. They didn't exactly went with a magnifying glass and a rabbi next to them. So, but he saw that she was very, very careful. She was also acting in a very modest way. She would typically, when the poor people would spend the whole day with the harvesters, they would talk, they would chat, they would, they would have a back and forth. They would have a rapport, and it caused all kinds of situations when they were from, 2 different opposite genders. It would cause some, behavior which is not less than modest. But she was very, very modest and very, very guarding herself and was just doing her job and not. That's another thing that he saw. A third thing is, when the harvesters would make the bundles together, they would have, after they cut the stalks, they would bring them to another area in the field, and they would make bundles of them. Now, if something fell off the bundles as they were making the bundles, this is not leket. That belongs to the owner. It's leket. It's only at the time of harvesting, when they cut. Okay? So, however, because you have a lot of stuff that fell in between, some other poor people would typically go and collect it, in between the omarim, in between the bundles. She stayed away from the bundles. She would only go where she was 100% allowed to go, and she did not overstep the boundaries that the halakha taught her. And so it's always freshly taught by Naomi to her, because she just became a convert 2 weeks before that, essentially. So it was all fresh to her. She did live with them for a while in Moab, but these type of halachot were not something that they dealt with, because there were no. They ran away. They ran away because they didn't want to deal with the poor people. So in Moab, they were not. They didn't really keep that much. So now, another thing that would happen in such a settings, in such a situation, because they would show favoritism. The harvesters would favor certain people and would be nasty to others. So if this is the only person in the field, he thought maybe this person, this young woman, she was 40, he was 80. So this woman, she is maybe related to one of the harvesters. The harvesters were not rich people, so it's very likely that they would be entitled to collect, their family would be entitled to collect, they themselves, because of their work, they're not. But their daughters or their wives might be. So he thought maybe the harvesters would shoo away all of the other poor people and just let her do it because she's related. So this is why he was asking them, Lemi hanara hazot? Who is this belongs to? Is she a wife of someone? She's daughter of someone? Who is she connected to? Because the idea was, he thought that it's, Vayan anar הנצב על הקוצרים. So the foreman, the manager said, so what did he say? He said, Vayomer na'ara Moaviyahi. Let's just first read the pshat, that she is a girl from Moab, a Moabite woman, that came back, Ashavayim Naomi Misdeh Moab. She came back with Naomi from Moab. So there is a whole big controversy as to what was the foreman talking about. Was he saying nice thing about her? Was he saying not nice things about her? Was he assuming certain things that Boaz didn't say and Boaz meant? There's a whole discussion. So we'll go through several lines of Q&A to understand what was going on here. So, according to those who said that he was praising her, he says, listen, she is a Moabite woman, and however, she's acting like one of ours because she was converted, and despite of the fact that her DNA is coming from Lot, which was very, very, how shall I say it, very... what?
Troubling.
Yeah, but the way they were acting between the genders was very promiscuous. Thank you. And they also, coming from Lot, was in Sodom, and they're not exactly the most generous people, and they're not exactly the people who care about halachot. They just did whatever they wanted at the moment. So he was saying, despite of the fact that she is a Moabite lady, she is acting totally differently than you would expect. She cares about modesty. She cares about the rules. She's not overstepping the boundaries, like whatever we mentioned before. So he was talking very nicely about her. That's opinion number one. Opinion number two is that no, he was actually saying that she is a Moabite woman, and I don't, we should. They really didn't know the halacha that a Moabite girl can convert. It wasn't well known, as we mentioned several times in the past. So she is that kind of she's just a questionable, a newcomer. So if she's a newcomer and she's a Moabite, why do I let her collect? Because the halachot of matnot aniyim does not apply to any Tom, Dick, and Harry. It applies to aniyei ircha, to the people of your town. To your brothers in the town that needs it. That's who you let. So somebody who came from Sudan, you're not obligated to help. Let them go home and deal with that there. So he answered right away. Why? Because she's coming with Naomi, and she converted. And if she's coming with Naomi, and Naomi is a resident, she's a citizen of Bethlehem, she's entitled, and especially because she's collecting for Naomi as well. She's not collecting for herself; she's collecting for Naomi as well, so she is allowed. That is the second line of discussion with that foreman.
How did they know so much? I mean, she kept to herself. She didn't talk to the workers.
Right.
So how'd they know all about her?
It's a small town, right?
So when somebody walks in and say, "Who are you?" It just takes one sentence to know I'm Naomi's daughter-in-law. Okay, that's it. That's all it takes. And she wasn't doing anything bad or avoiding. The whole idea was that she was looking for someone who's nice to her. Right? That's we spoke about last time. She was looking for someone who's welcoming. So in that place, because those were the harvesters of Boaz taught them to be nice to the poor people, and so they did that, and that's why he didn't kick her out, even though she's a Moabite woman, so to speak. Another thing is, and this is a little more far out there, that the foreman knew the relationship. He knew that everybody in town knew that Boaz is related to Naomi. Boaz definitely knew about it, right? So Ruth did not know that this field belongs to Boaz. That she didn't know. It just happens to be, and she's not aware of it yet. But the foreman did know. And when he saw Boaz looking at her, he wanted to make sure that he knows what's shaken, that who's whom here, that there is a relationship. He also, according to some, wanted to prevent Boaz from thinking, maybe I can marry, now that I don't have a wife, maybe I can marry this, because she was she was very beautiful, and she was available. Her husband passed away, as everybody knew the story about Naomi, Azot Naomi, everybody knew what happened. So he was, the foreman was thinking, maybe Boaz is thinking of marrying her. That's why he's looking at her and asking questions, which is usually not what he would do. Mm-hmm. It's not something that he would regularly do. Walk into a place, what's the name of this girl? It's ain't fitting, So he thought that he has all kinds of ideas. So he said, listen, it's not for you. You're the big guy, the big shot, the main shofet, the leader of the Jews. She is a Moabite girl. Don't
Stay away.
Stay away. Don't go there. So all of that, it's several discussions. So this line of discussion goes throughout, and they explain each one of the psukim. This is what he said. That's what the foreman answered, etc. So let's just go through it and see how it works. So the foreman is saying that it's a Moabite woman, and she came back with Naomi, Mr. Moab. And then he's continuing to tell him what Ruth, told him, the foreman. Vatomer, she told me, alaktana, va'asafti ba'omarim. So again, that I should take gleaning, and I'm going to make them bundles. Because he was answering the question that how come she has 10 bundles over there?
Fast worker.
It's a fast worker. I mean, she was there from the morning. We'll see in the few words later. She was working since the morning, and it took time, but she was able to collect as much. So according to those who said that she was nice, they're stressing the fact that it says alakta, meaning that she is going to go after the leket, and not after the peah and shichecha. And she would do the leket according to the laws, ones or two and no more. According to those who says that she's were not nice, that the foreman was not nice, they're stressing the fact that v'asafti ba'omarim, that I'm going to collect a lot, that I'm going to take advantage here. I'm going to do a number on you and collect a whole bunch of things. So depending on what we want to believe happened over there, the words are the same. It's just the tone, the intonations. What was he meaning when he said such and such? So, v'asafti ba'omarim achrei hakotzrim. The consensus, according to most, is that he was, from his answer, Boaz saw that she is something special. That's the consensus, because that, despite the fact of what he meant to say, the foreman, Boaz saw the good things. Some say even that this whole back and forth of what the foreman said went in the foreman's head. He actually didn't really say anything bad. It was just as we said, the tone of the words that were spoken that teaches us what behind it. But he didn't lie. He said the truth. That she said, I'm going to go after the gleaning, and I'm going to collect bundles, achrei hakotzrim, not in between them, not to mingle with them, but after the harvesters. I'm going to go in a very nice way after them. And indeed she came, ותבוא, ותעמוד מאז הבוקר ועד עתה, זה שבטה הבית מעט. And so then she came, and she stood here, which is in the sun, and right after Pesach, in the field, the whole day. It's very hard. מאז הבוקר, from the morning until now, and she just sat down to rest in the little shed that they had over there, a little house, the little roof that they have over there for the harvesters to rest. She just went and sat there just for a few minutes now, but she was working all day. So Boaz saw that she is a special, the way she was acting and the way the foreman was confirming. So Vayomer Boaz el Ruth, Alo shamat biti. So right away when he heard Naomi, the alarm went in his mind. He was busy with his shiva and with the morning, and he obviously heard about Naomi, and he didn't meet Naomi yet, and he didn't meet the Ruth yet, and he right away decided that this is something he needs to take care of. I mean, that's a relative. He wanted to be, to do the right thing. So he right away spoke to her in a very, very nice, an 8-year-old man talking to a 40-year-old woman can say, my daughter, it's Alo shamat biti. Al telchi lilkot besadeh acher. You heard what the foreman was saying about you, how nice you are. He was not saying anything bad. So please don't go to glean somewhere else in another field. And also, גם לא תעבורי מזה וכה תדבקין עם נערותיי. Don't even go to another field of mine, because I have different foremans and different harvesters, and they're not all angels, and you might bump into a nasty one. So stay here in this field, because I'm going to make sure that these guys are nice to you, and you can do what you need to do. And you should really go together with my mates, with the harvester women that were there, that were not necessarily harvesting, but they were there to help, to do, I guess, the easier job with the bundling and whatever is that. Serve coffee, yeah, exactly. No, they had Keurig machines over there. They didn't. But so he suggested that she's going to be with his mates, and she's going to stick in this field and not go elsewhere. And he told her, and he saw that she's a very special woman, and there is the whole idea of ayin tova. What is ayin tova? When good eye, right? And there is a bad eye, ayin ore. What is ayin ore? Ayin ore is when someone is looking at your things and said, they're jealous, or they're how do you say it? Critical. They're critical about things that you have or things that you do. They look at your new car and say, you got a Japanese car, So this is called ayin hara. When somebody is looking at your property with kind eyes, it has effect. It's not good. That's why in our circles, people are trying. At least the halakha is suggesting that people should not, get.
They're not covered.
Yeah, right. For red Ferraris, convertible with the.
Put on a red window.
With the diamonds and the handle. It's not exactly what we should be doing. But on the other side of it is, if someone is looking at your property with kind eyes, it gives bracha to your property. So if somebody is looking, look, such a nice house, such a nice achnasat orchim, such a nice place to rest on Shabbat. I mean, whatever people are looking at your property with kind eyes, it causes the property to improve.
But can also be interpreted, ayin hara, as a negative person looking at a negative, kind tov, be positive. The glass is half full and half empty. So
right,
positive towards her.
So, but he told her now, Enaich basadeh, put your eyes, look with your eyes into the field. Look with your eyes into the field. So, some say just don't look elsewhere. That's the pshat, right?
You shouldn't be looking at all.
Yeah, don't look elsewhere. Don't look at continue to act in a modest way. And there are those who say that he also wanted her to, if you look at my field with a kind eye, it's good for both of us, Asher iktzerun ve'alacht achrein. So as they are harvesting, as they're cutting the wheat, ve'alacht achrein, you should walk after them. and he said אחריהן, after the maids, after the ladies, right? And alot tzivit. Now that she is going to be next to the girls and away from the boys, some boys will take offense and will not like it. Alot tziviti את הנערים לבלתי נוגח. He told the נערים, the boys, not to tell her anything and not to harm her and not to give snide comments, just to stay away. And the fact that she is going with the maids, that's what I told her to do. So don't tell her, don't push her around and tell her where to be and where not to be. וצמית והלכת לכלים. And if you are thirsty, you should go to the jugs of water that were there. ושתית מאשר ישבון הנערים. And you should drink from those jugs of water that the נערים would draw from the well. Now let's talk a little bit about this water and what's this whole story with the water. So the pshat is that when you're in the field and to bring water, there were no faucets and pipes, so people would go and draw from the well the water and bring it on their back, working all day. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of water. The Anarim would go back and forth. Here in Bethlehem, there was a very special well. And that well was in the center of town. And that well had very sweet and good water. And they would draw the water from that well and bring it to the field. Now, the water that they worked so hard to bring from Bethlehem, which was far away to the field, is not something that they would share with the poor people. The poor people, let's draw water from near somewhere, wherever you find a hole in the ground that has a little water, it's your problem. Or even if they supplied it, it's not the best water. It's not, it's not the Kool-Aid. It's some, whatever, the second grade water that the poor people will drink. And they would be very possessive about it because they would need to, if it runs out, they have to go and get more. So they would be very very protective and not allow him. So he instructed them and instructed her to go drink from the best water. Now, what is this story with the best water? Right. In general, the cities were built around water those days because the source of water. So the well would be a plaza in the center of the city, in most cases, because everybody needs water, and they would build around it, so everybody is more or less equal distance. So, and it's protected. It was the most important thing. So it was in the plaza of the city. What else was in the plaza of the city? Beis Din. Beis Din would sit there because if they need to transactions that needs Beis Din, or if they need to pick someone who did something wrong, they're all going to come to drink. Sooner or later they're going to show up in the plaza of the city. So the Beis Din would sit next to the main well of the city. So the Beis Din of Bethlehem, which was the main Beis Din of that time because it was led by Boaz, who was the shofet, so that was the authoritative Beis Din, was sitting over there, and it was a very important place, and they didn't let any Tom, Dick, and Harry come in there and draw water because it was, the court is in session. I'm sorry, somebody needs some water. It didn't work that way. So you had special boys who were trained or were allowed to go there and get the water while court is in session, while the Beis Din is in session. So it was, again, it was very good water, but it was much more scarce because you needed to have, I don't know if they had permits, but you needed to be someone in order to get those water. Now, where do we see this water mentioned, the same exact well of Bethlehem? We see at the very end of Shmuel a whole story about this water. Who was the most famous offspring of Ruth? David HaMelech. David HaMelech and the whole his family, after Ruth married Boaz and they had and they had before parents, whatever they had. They had whoever they had, and eventually Yishai and David. The entire family remained in Bethlehem. So David HaMelech grew up in Bethlehem. He grew up in Bethlehem, and he loved the water. That it was like the water. You have till this very day. I'm hearing people, the New York water. So he liked the Bethlehem water, and they were very sweet. Now, when David HaMelech was running away from Shaul, he would hide in the mountains and in the caves around there. He would go from cave to cave and from place to place. At one point, Shmuel had a private ceremony and anointing him as a king, making him the king, while Shaul was still alive. Shaul happened to know it and, got very upset. That's why one of the reasons he was trying to kill David is because, that's David would be the next guy, on the seat. So Shaul was looking to kill David, and because he was very, at that point he was not exactly a kind king, he would destroy and kill anybody who came in contact with David. As we remember the story when David went into Nov, which is the city of the Kohanim, to get, he borrowed the Cherev of Goliath, right? He took some food from the Kohen Gadol. They were helping him. The next day, Shaul HaMelech came and killed all 80-something Kohanim. He killed all the Kohanim of Nov. So anybody who was giving advice and help to David HaMelech is doomed, was doomed. Now, David HaMelech, being a king and a new king, was going only according to Halakha. And he needed advisors, he needed a Beis Din, he needed a halachic resource to ask all kinds of questions, which we'll hear in a second. What questions he asked with amazing, very, very pertains to our days. So the Beis Din that he knew and Beis Din that knew him was the Beis Din of Bethlehem. That's where he came from, right? The guys from Brooklyn, they knew each other. So they were the authority that he would revert to, that he would ask questions. Now, David HaMelech had a group of people with him, always traveling, and from time to time, some of them would change loyalties, and that's how sometimes he needed to travel from place to place, because Shaul happens to know where he was because someone snitched. So he would run around. And he would not be with the guys. Even if he had the guys traveling with him, he would not usually be with them. He would be around them, in an earshot or eye shot. I mean, it's a little bit further away, and he would come in and out as needed. Now, when he needed to ask based on a question, the worst thing to do would be, hey, Moishele, go ask based on the question. Somebody who might be snitching would hear that, and the next thing you know, the Beis Din of Bethlehem will end up like the Kohanim of Nov. They will all be killed. So he needed to send only trusted people, only a handful of trusted people to Beis Din to ask the questions without letting everybody else know that he's asking questions. So how did they do? They spoke in code. It says, let's go bring water. Because the water was right next to Beis Din in Bethlehem. So let's go bring water. And when he said that to people, let's go bring water, they knew, we have to go and ask a question, a halachic question. And again, it was a code that was known to only a handful of people. So the story goes, at the end of Sefer Shmuel, there is the last words of David, including Shirat David, the song of David that mentioned several highlights of his life. And after that, after Shirat David, there are a chapter and a half maybe left after that, 2 chapters. it's sort of wrapping up the story of David, and they mentioning all of the people that helped him, all of the giborim, all of the strong, the mighty people that helped him. And they mentioning a very interesting story, that there was a situation there where the Philistines were all around the land of Israel. That was the guerrilla warfare that was happening at the time. And there was a whole platoon of them in Bethlehem. Now, the Jewish people of Bethlehem did not leave because the Philistines were there. And that group of Philistines were called Chaya. They were called the animals. Because it was a platoon that acted as such, and they were just very, very, vicious people. So in order to get to Bethlehem, you had to go through the platoon of those animals in order to get to the people. I mean, they were looking for David HaMelech who killed Goliath, right? And for people of Shaul, they would look to kill anybody who might be threatening them. So it happens that so they would have a lot of skirmishes and a lot of battles around Bethlehem, and they would use the fields of wheat to hide in. So the question that David had is, if the Philistines are hiding in a field of wheat, can you burn the field, and the field of wheat belongs to a Jew? Can you burn it in order to expose them or to hurt them or to burn them, despite the fact that you're going to destroy the property of another Jew? We know that you cannot destroy property of someone else and say, I'm going to pay you later. You cannot go and shoplift and say, I'm going to pay it. That's not allowed. But when you're talking about saving the life of the people, that's allowed, but you need to pay. You need to compensate them for. So he was asking them what to do. Am I allowed to do it? Should I compensate it? Should I not? What to do? So they answered him afterwards, listen, usually you have to compensate them. We're not allowed to do it just like that. But because you're a king, and a king have a responsibility, you're allowed to do it anyway. A king he can override private domain. So this is the question that he had, and he was sending people to that same place, to the same source of water that she was drinking from. That was the source of water that was helping him get his answers from Beis Din. And we don't have time, but I'll just mention in 30 seconds. That source of water ended up being the part of the aqueduct system that supplied water to Yerushalayim, and that specific line to that specific line was supplying water to Har HaBayit. And they have a whole, it's a book that's talking about the water sources in the land of Israel, and the whole chart of, and that specific line, that specific aqueduct is going right, passing in the center of Bethlehem, few yards from Kever Rachel, and leading to.
The one that goes through here, David?
No. That's going to the Shiloh. That's somewhere else. That's from the other side.
No,
Anyway,
I thought the water source came from the Hebron Hills.
Right. So there were three water sources. They're coming from Hebron. If you look at the map, there is Hebron, Efrat, that water source, and Bethlehem. It's like a straight line. Hebron, Efrat, Bethlehem, Har HaBayit. It's one straight line. So you had three, and it's part of the what's called today the pools of Shlomo, Berchot Shlomo. So you had three pools and three levels, and you had aqueducts going to the pools to fill them up, and from the pools to the upper city, lower city, and the Har HaBayit. We don't have time now, but
so
it's
the one through Efrat is
so
from this Bethlehem?
So the one from Efrat is not. It's the one that it's no. It's
So
not.
this is the.
It's no. From the one from Efrat, there's two. One of them is, and one of them is not. I guess. Okay.
This is from the time of the Second Temple.
What?
Is the time of the Second
The
Temple.
alarm is on. I'll disconnect in a second. Yeah. What?
It's from the time of the Second Temple, the water aqueduct.
So the water aqueducts were used throughout the years. I think what they found is from the time of the Second Temple all the way to the British.
There was a market in the Second Temple.